Hello, ladies and some gentlemen. Hello, all you vital, relevant ladies at home and those who want to be. I'm Lydia Ruth, and welcome to Homemaking Radio. Hope you get a few things done while you listen, and also that in your current circumstances, you are being content but have great plans for improvement. Today, before I begin, please click the link in the description box if you're looking at this on the channel at YouTube. Go to the link underneath the video where it shows where to go and click that on, because that'll take you to my blog page where I'm embedding this, and you get to see everything else around it, other pictures and the links that I have spoken of if I do. And today I'm going to go with Lucy Wyndham Reed for my exercise program, who is going to Blenheim Palace and walk around there in England. So she has arranged it so that the video helps you to walk and to stretch while you're at home. And when she sits down on a park bench, you sit down on a nearby chair, and I find it quite amusing. And someday I'll take you on a walk with my little new camera that my grandson bought me, which I haven't had time to really play with. And we'll just see what we can do walking around in a dress and an apron. See what kind of exercises we can do. Maybe I'll do that. Now today my tea is called, it's such a pretty box I couldn't resist it, and it's called Immunity Support with Guava. And it has, sometimes it's hard to find where they printed the ingredients on here, but they're supposed to put what the ingredients are somewhere on here. And it is herbal, it's a herbal tea. And I couldn't find, I think I tore it off, but it has a wonderful scent. And so today I have put it in a cup, and I'm going to just let it sit there and see what it smells like in the room. I might taste it too. So I thought you would enjoy that, and get your little cup and get ready to listen and to get ready for your day at home. So today I want to discuss quite a few things, and the first thing would be your appearance. And the important thing about that is you, like me, have probably got a lifetime full of things hanging in the closet when you were more in the social world, with your children and going places and doing things, and they're just hanging there. And so I've just dug into my stuff, and I'm going to wear it around here every day. I have discovered that I am terminal, like most of you, and we don't, we're living on borrowed time now because we're vital, and I don't have time to waste, so I am going to try to wear all these things and try to wear them out before before the end. So ladies, I hope that you enjoy listening today, and that whatever I say will edify, meaning build you up, and have you enjoy your home more and enjoy being a homemaker more. And those of you who aren't yet homemaking, I hope it'll motivate you. I have been talking quite a bit about single women who are still at home with their parents. Now, it's a different story if you're not home with your family and you're out on your own. You'll have a different strategy of getting back to being a keeper at home. I will just say get as close to that model as you can. But for those who are still home and thinking that there's a single period of time, single life in between being at home with your family, your parents, and marrying, that there's that single life, well, the powers that be have portrayed that as a glorious time of freedom for young people. But it is actually quite deceitful and distressing in many ways, and extremely lonely. And so I would say stay home until you find your own home and start your own family, because there was no such thing in history it was considered only those young women who had no living father or brother or anyone to help her went to work and went to, I say work, I shouldn't say work, but got a job, got under some kind of employment. And I want to tell you something, you ladies that think that you might just want to let your daughter have a part-time job somewhere so that she can have some spending money, that if that happened to me, I mean, if one of my children wanted to do that, I would say, I'll tell you what, I will pay you the same amount to stay home and take care of your mother's house, and so that she can do something else. I'd try to give them a good motivation plan, and if I couldn't pay them, I'd find other ways to motivate them. And I ran across this little book, this big book called Speech for Christian Schools. And we had only used the first couple pages, and I'd never really read the rest of it because it was so heavy with meaning that we never got beyond the first chapter when my children were growing up, because it was all about how to pronounce and articulate, and then it had several chapters on different kinds of speeches. And we got that far, but it was so thorough, and it was so beautiful that we didn't finish the rest. And I read the chapter this week on speaking to persuade. So when we're talking to people and we're trying to persuade them to a better way of life for their own comfort and their own safety, then we have to consider who it is and what kind of audience it is. And there's a whole chapter on understanding your audience. But I wanted to read you about persuasive speech. And many times we vital people get kind of frustrated and puzzled as to why our suggestions and our knowledge is not taken really seriously and no one is motivated by it. But first of all, I would say take care of your appearance if you're a vital homemaker. And if you're really young, get started taking care of your appearance and never let up on it. If you're a teen at home, make taking care of your appearance the most priority part of the day before you do anything, because if you want your children or your peers or your people that you're trying to influence to be taking you seriously, you've got to look well-groomed, polished, put together, etc. And so when it was talking in the speech book about your audience, it also had a chapter on your appearance. And so you have an audience as a homemaker, even if all you have is a cat. You have an audience, and you can practice on this audience with first of all, your appearance. And I have said that your appearance is a great ministry in many ways. If you are not a good speaker and you're not a good persuader, you don't have many skills that you feel confident in, you can at least get skilled in dressing well, dressing up. That is something that is so much quicker to learn and to do, and it has instant results. And sometimes, remember in the olden days, those of you who are vital, we found when we were out of sorts, if we just changed our clothes or washed our hair, that just helped so much. And so balancing your persuasive speech. Number one, gain attention. So there was a whole chapter on how to gain attention. And I won't go into that, but I would say that your appearance has a lot to do with that. People will look away if they're offended by your appearance, or if the appearance has not got any kind of freshness or life in it that would attract anyone. So analyze the problem, and that means tell what it is you're trying to say and why. And the other one is show how the problem affects your listener. Say, if you go out to, let's say you have a young person at home and it's a girl, and you'd like to train her, you'd like to teach her to want to be a homemaker. It's like Taylor Caldwell said, once they start getting a paycheck, they're practically doomed, because people will be hanging on to them, wanting wanting it. And that I have seen this happen with young people and young men too, young boys. They go out to work, they're at home, they go out to work, and next thing you know, somebody's trying to sell them something. Somebody's trying to get that money that this person is making. And before you're, 25, your judgment is not fully formed. And so they get these young people at the age of 18 or over, and pretty soon they're in debt, or they have spent all their earnings, so they have to just keep working, and they haven't built up the nest egg that they were hoping to have. So it's really important to show them this problem is if you'll stay home and you will consult with your father and mother about your money and how to save it and how to, keep from being persuaded to go out and share a dwelling with someone else, then your money, you will have a nest egg, you will have money. And you state the problem and how it will benefit them if you persuade them to do it the wise way. And then propose a solution and how it will affect them, and then call for a specific response from the listener. Many times we're too weak as vital people. We're too weak in wanting a response. We just say something and then we're just like, well, take it or leave it. But I think sometimes we need to be a little bit more expecting of a response. Like, well, I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to work when you put it into gear. So this is so important, and it has a whole chapter here on speech to convince, and it shows how you would a problem and then how to solve it and how much better off you'd be if you did it this way. And the scriptures are a lot like that too. The Apostle Paul talked about that, and Jesus Christ did too. Now, also, if you're getting ready and you're getting ready to start with your work at home, I think it's really important to make your list. Besides getting ready, which would be bathing, you've got a fresh new canvas, and dressing and fixing yourself up. And many people are not happy with themselves, and that's reflected on their appearance. So even if you're not happy with yourself, at least put on an appearance of wanting to be. And so get your list ready. And the other thing was, get yourself your favorite cup of whatever you drink in the morning, and maybe go outside in the blue light, which is half an hour before the sunrise. And if you miss it, just go out in the sunrise, and you'll see it has a really great effect. And if you also would make a list, it also helps you to balance your mind and balance your thinking, and you feel more organized, less scatterbrained. If you teach your children, if you're homeschooling especially, you can teach your children how to make a schedule. It doesn't have to be, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock or whatever, just a list. And then they can determine whether or not, how much time it would take. In Sidetracked Home Executives, which became Fly Lady back in the 70s, what they would do to help you understand how to make a schedule with a time limit was to, first of all, make your list and then go, let's say it would say fold the towels. Time yourself for folding the towels, and then you can determine whether it's 9 o'clock to 9:15. So time yourself on everything, and then you'll know how much time to write down on that if you're going to make a timer schedule. And I think that also it's important to include in that list personal things like correspondence and anything else that you like to do, like sewing or all the shopping that you need to do, and include things that also give some rest and relaxation and what they call self-care now. Now, I talked to you a little bit ago about being refined and polished in your appearance. Well, we all understand that, but when we talk about being refined in the home, and we want our children and we want everybody to be polite, and there's a certain way of speaking that we would prefer because it's polite, it doesn't put people on edge. And I remembered a little lesson I did for homeschool girls. One time we used to take turns doing lessons and teas for homeschool groups back in the day. And you don't have to have a homeschool group to do this, just invite a friend. But we have these little spoons, you know, that for tea time. This one has a teapot on it and everything. And so I had a couple of these, and I would pass them around. And this one here is darker because it's not as polished, you see, and it has a tarnish on it. So as they would each get one of these little spoons that was tarnished, and they could take a cloth or, you know, a tissue and then wipe it until the tarnish came off, and they got them quite clean, and they could understand what tarnish was and how bad language, bad attitudes, bad habits tarnish your character. And so they would shine these, and they would understand the tarnishing of your soul, you know. But of course we know God forgives, but He also wants us to improve. He wants us to get the better of some of our bad habits and bad language and poor performance in things that are our responsibilities. He wants us to overcome. And so we have to keep polishing. We have to keep correcting ourselves. That's what self-control is all about. So at home, we want to have our best appearance and our best manners, and our pleases and our thank yous. And I always laugh when I think about Mr. Collins in Pride and Prejudice, where he said he kept a little list of polite sayings, you know, and Jane Austen made fun of it, of course, because he was just doing it kind of mechanically. But these polite sayings and this polite conversation can get us through very difficult times, which may be tense at home. And some of them are, how are you today? Would you like a cup of tea? Remember, Fanny just would say tea when things got rather pressured in opinion and conversation. They had all these sayings, and we need to bring them back so that life at home can be pleasant. And there may be, quote, an elephant in the room where someone has embarked on something that isn't right and goes against your values and is a bad influence, but we want to keep the conversation light so that it doesn't get into a heated situation. And I think Fascinating Womanhood had something like that in her part on refinement and manners, was don't get in heated arguments. And the Victorians had the book Simple Social Graces by Linda Lichter talked about the Victorian home and all their likes and dislikes and their habits and their customs, and they had little polite conversation. And when I was really young, I thought that was silly because it just wasn't intelligent. It just wasn't intellectual. But now I'm starting to see the value of it. It really smooths over some very difficult times. How are you? I am fine. And even letters, you know, to keep things smooth and happy at home and improve the atmosphere. And I would like to read to you today out of 1 John or 2 John. And this is what we vital people, and even those of you who are young, who are at home with your brothers and sisters, you want your brothers and sisters to grow up to be upright individuals. You look on them and you want that, and it's very disappointing to us ladies, especially when our brothers and sisters just went astray or didn't turn out like we had hoped, you know, being great fathers and husbands and businessmen and church goers, and sticking by their honesty and their goodness, and it can be a great disappointment. So we need to be sure we edify everybody in the family, our brothers and our sisters, when we're growing up. But then the mothers and the fathers, what they want for their sacrifice is this wonderful time when you can look at them and say, I'm so glad they're following in the things that we taught them and the things of God. And in 2 John, he said, I rejoiced greatly to find some of your children walking in the truth. I know we want them all to do that, don't we? But I noticed he said some of your children walking in the truth, just as we were commanded by the Father. I rejoiced greatly to find some of your children walking in the truth. Yes, I know it's hard, isn't it, when you have maybe members of your family that aren't, but I really liked that. And I wanted to show you how to take care of a book that I have ordered this book from Victoria, and it was called The Art of Flowers, and I got it on a different site where someone had bought it and was reselling it, and it's called The Art of Flowers. But these books, when they're new, have the smell of ink and paper and a few chemicals in them. So what I do is when I get one, I take them and I turn them to the first page like this, and I'll put a little weight maybe on one side of it, and I'll lay it down on a little table somewhere in the house, a little place. Mine's by my entry on the tea cart. Just lay it there, and this one has a marker ribbon with it. And every day I will change the page, and that way I get to see everything that's in it. And I rarely get to really sit down and read a whole book anymore. So I will just turn a different page every day, and that will air the book out very, very adequately. And I don't know if you've noticed that with even the new books. Sometimes they have a strong chemical smell. So that's one way to air it out. And if it's a nice day and it's dry and it's summer, I can just do this on the front porch and then occasionally turn the page, but bring it in at night. But it's a book about flowers, and it looks really pretty laying on that cart. I wanted to give you that hint, so that if you've got books that you really value and you want to keep, but they have developed a bit of a musty scent, you can open them up and you can air them out in the regular air in your house or on your porch. I have been reading Wives and Daughters to you because it has so many life lessons for people at home, and especially you who are have a great love for your children, and you watch for their souls, and you're really sacrificing for that, and not going after status or riches or wealth or better homes and gardens types of ambitions, so that your children will have you and have your strength develop to help develop their strength, and your mind to help develop their mind. And so I encouraged you all to buy this DVD set, Wives and Daughters, and it's a BBC production. And I'm reading the book and finding that the discs and the videos are very, very true to this, and it's quite cleverly done. And in the first bit of this book, it shows Molly as a very young girl who wants very badly to go to this party that's provided by the Earl, and in the village, and which is one of the richer people, and every year puts on a dinner or something for all these other people. And she has been wanting to go because she's motherless, and her father is the county doctor and the country doctor, and he has questioned her wanting to go, and she said, "May I go, Papa?" And with a little anxious tone of voice. And this is where girls tend to persuade their fathers even against their better judgment sometimes. I have found so many young girls at home who went astray because they went to their father and persuaded him, went to their mother and persuaded her. And of course, we all love our children and we want them to be happy, and we don't want to hold them back to go out to work for someone else, and then it was just one step in the wrong direction because they could not handle the freedom, and they could not handle the onslaught against their values from the world, from co-workers and stuff. But when you ask these girls, "Are you sure you want to do that? That's not a good idea. You can stay home. Your dad will be happy to give you a job for him at home, or your mother." And they'll say, "I have my I have the blessings of my father and my mother. And what they did was they pushed and aggravated until they got them to relent, because the parents were just afraid, well, if I don't let her go and do this, she'll just run off, or she'll just, get into trouble some other way. So here's Molly trying to persuade her father to go to the towers for this event. And he says, "Where do you want to go, my dear?" Waking up from his own professional thoughts. "To the towers on Thursday, that gentleman. Would you like that, my dear? It's always seemed to me a rather tiresome piece of gaiety. A rather a tiring day, I mean, being so early, and the heat and all that." He was right. The first scene shows her being exhausted from the heat and falling asleep at the trunk of a tree. And from there, it was just a disaster the rest of the day. She missed her father so much, and she wanted to go home, and she had fallen asleep. And so the father, all of us as parents, we always know when something is a social thing is just probably not a wise thing to do. But it is in real life, and she says, "You would like to go? You would like to go then, would you?" "Yes, if I may." "Do you think I may?" Well, we'll see. Yes, I think we can manage it if you wish to go so much." And I remember wanting to go to something. I grew up in a public school, and I remember wanting to go to something, and my parents did not want me to go, and I was the first one to go to school. I was the oldest of the family, and my father did not want me to go, but I begged and begged and begged, and so he took me in. And of course, it was very dark. It was the middle of winter. It was very dark. Going there and coming back, it was some kind of a school event thing. And then he couldn't find me, and I couldn't find him, and he was quite aggravated. And then he just stopped it right there. He said, "We won't be going to any more," because we lived a long ways away out on a homestead, so we had that excuse. And but I remember only 6 years old being able to beg enough to get my parents to relent. And so this is how we have to be so discerning and so wise. So anyway, he said, "I guess we could manage it." And Molly said, "Please, Papa, I do wish to go, but I don't really care about it." "That's a rather puzzling speech," he said, "but I suppose you mean you don't care to go if it will be any trouble. I can easily manage it, however. You may consider it settled. You'll want a white frock, remember. You'd better tell Betty you're going, and she'll see after making you tidy." So I just thought that was an interesting scene. They didn't put it in any of the movies. There was a Wives and Daughters movies before the 1995 one, and I don't remember the date of it. And you can get it free. You can watch it free on a place called Daily Motion, I think, or some places online. He was very willing to gratify his little girl, so the next day he rode over to the towers to visit some sick housemaid, but in reality to throw himself in my lady's way and get her to ratify the invitation to Molly. He chose his time with a little natural diplomacy, which indeed he had often to exercise. He rode into the stable yard about 12 o'clock, a little before lunchtime, and yet after the worry of opening the post bag and discussing its contents was over. After he had put up his horse, he went in by the back way to the house. Yes, he had to go in the back. The house on this side, the towers at the front. He saw his patient, gave directions to the housekeeper, and then came upon Lady Cumnor, now talking to her daughter. And he told her what he wanted, that he wanted to confirm the invitation for Molly to come. And so that's all I will read to you now, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about how much things don't really change, and how much Elizabeth Gaskell, I think she called it an everyday story, because really it was about that sort of thing. It was about the everyday life, and you can see it coordinating with today. And I think homemakers need to have stories, and if you don't have stories, you could make some up. My mother was really good about making up a story. And I'd like to read to you a little bit more about this situation with young girls leaving home, especially if you're homeschooled. Now, I can understand the public school girls, they're used to going every day away from home. They're out every day, and the natural inclination, of course, and the next step is to get a job away from home. You can see the whole plan is to take your kids away from you from the beginning. You know, get them away from you and away from your influence. And that's why I promote the idea of homeschooling, because it isn't just about subjects and knowledge and intelligence, but it's also about relationships. It's about the home. It's about the family, which we need more reinforcement for the home and family. Very few of the politicians talk much about, when they talk about family, they're just talking about family values. They mean movies that are decent enough for families to watch, but they're not really watching out for the souls of the families, and that's the job of the homemaker. We watch for your souls. It isn't just keeping the house clean, but many of us have made tremendous sacrifices in order to keep our children at home with us and be homemakers and homeschoolers, because I've heard from ladies that have said that when they started homeschooling in the 1980s, because many of us vital people, that's when we began, probably before you were born, that their husbands couldn't get a job in certain places, and because of the status, the non-status of homeschooling, it was so unusual and so looked down upon. As a matter of fact, it was considered extremely controversial, and it wouldn't go with promoting a business. And so a lot of men could not get the kind of jobs they wanted, because they wanted to homeschool their children, and they were told they wouldn't fit in with the company, or they wouldn't fit in the community. And even preachers couldn't get jobs with nice congregations, nice churches, because they wanted their children enrolled in the public school so that they could have an influence on the community. And so many of these people that I have known really made a sacrifice. They got in a smaller place, and they got in a home that was more affordable. It wasn't as nice as they could have had, and they turned down salaries, and so that their children could be spared having to go to public school. And even in those days, one of the things that got these women to want to homeschool was their experience with the public school. Their kids had been in the public school for a while, and they'd noticed some things. As soon as they drove up to pick their children up, they could hear a bunch of swearing from the halls, and this was the children, and then they were very alarmed at the appearance and the attitudes of the other children. And so this is one of the reasons that they wanted to. And there was a book out at the time called What Are They Teaching Our Children by Mel and Norma Gabler, and they weren't teaching the girls to be girls and the boys to be boys, and it was just she had quotes from textbooks. She had taken care of her grandchildren one time, and they brought their books home, and she started to look at them, and so she used these for her book about homeschooling. But this reminds me of some of the little boys in my descendants, and my children did this too in homeschool. And I didn't tell them to do this, and I'd never introduced them to the subject, and I don't know where they got the idea, but it just seems to be so natural. But the boys in the family decided to have a boys' club. And so they would guard the door of wherever they decided to have the club, and they would make sure that the girls in the family didn't come in. And one of the current descendants that are young and they are having a boys' club said that their sister wanted to peek in to see what they were doing, and so they decided to give her an application form to see, because she wanted to be, part of their club. And this is all in good nature. It's not like they're leaving them out or anything. It's just an enjoyable part of life, and I can understand when maybe somebody in the family is deliberately leaving somebody else out, but this is a different situation. And so they gave her an application form, and the first question was, are you a girl or a boy? So that just totally eliminated her. And I got to thinking about that, how clever that is. That was it somewhere in the New Testament it says a little child shall lead them and out of the mouths of babes. How clever that is. It's greater than any. Didn't even have to have an act of Congress to determine to have a boys club and what the difference was. And I just thought it was phenomenal. And I remembered my children playing that too. The boys wanted to have a boys club, and then the girls wanted to have a girls club, and they would do things. They would have meetings, and the meetings would come to order. They'd have new business and old business. They'd make things, and the girls would make cookies for the boys. The boys would make little wooden pieces for the girls, and using their skills. And I just thought that was phenomenal, the boys club, the girls club situation. And so now with the younger boys, they want me to write to them, to their boys club. So when I send them a little boys club letter or newsletter, I have suggestions on what they could do in their boys club. And one of them was the old-fashioned treasure hunt. And that way the girls could participate too, and there would be prizes, and there'd be treasures to keep, and a map, how to make a treasure map. This is just for really, really young children. And that you, as a vital person, probably have some knowledge on this that you can help with. And I know there are books out about it, but I don't know, somehow it's just easier to get it out of your mind. And so now I want to go to a book here that I am not going to tell you the author. Sometimes when I tell the authors and they find out something about the author that they don't like, the actual lesson is lost on people. So I want to read this, and it was written by a man, actually. And it was about the man and his strength, and how his body and his mind were made to be providers for their families. And one of the things he brought out in this book was that when a man takes on the burden of providing for his family, he doesn't get any rest from it. He never stops thinking about it. And there's competition out there in the world. There's always a chance that his job will be downsized, or the company will go out of business, and it's not guaranteed. So he thinks about this all the time. This is always on his mind. And I'm from an era where the men would say, my dear, no woman in my family will ever have to work outside the home, because it was a great accomplishment to them and a great source of satisfaction for them to be the breadwinner, and the woman took care of the home. And a lot of people would say, oh, well, she's not doing anything. But if she wasn't there, he'd have to hire it out all done, and then he would find out how much it would cost him, and the money would go to the hired help, and the family couldn't build up their money supply because it was all going out to someone else. That's not to say that the homemaker doesn't get paid. She's part of saving that money. She is part of the wealth that they're going to build up. And it's not just his salary, but it's other things that they have. So I want to read the question that he asked. Should daughters be trained for careers? You may think your daughters should prepare to make a living in the event of widowhood. And that was always what we were told in the olden days, was you just need something to fall back on. Unfortunately, once we got the education and the career, you need something to fall back on was all the time, every day, because there was always a report that the economy was bad. There was always the news report that this is a bad economy. It takes two people. And so, of course, the emergency was all the time. And it still is. I mean, most of us have lived on the edge most of our lives, and there's always going to be some disaster predicted for us on the media, and one of the things they say is that, studies have shown, that your retirement isn't going to be there when you're ready for it, and that there are just all manner of things that aren't going to work out for you. And so we're all frightened, and we all think we're going to end up under a bridge. And so far, I think that the advantage of being vital is you get to look back and notice that you might have got pretty close to living in a car, but you never had to live under a bridge. And so he says, you may think your daughter should prepare to make a living in the event of widowhood, divorce, or other compelling emergencies. Consider the seriousness of this step from the following viewpoints. Number one, it makes her independent. And I know that rattles people to hear that. We're all independent. I'm independent. I have a schedule I make for myself. I determine what the menus are. I go do the grocery shopping. I determine what kind of diet we're all going to be on. I determine what I'm going to sew and what kind of fabric I'm going to use. I determine how much time I'm going to spend on actual labor in the home and actual rest. So I'm pretty independent. The problem with employment outside of the home, and I'm speaking to you young girls who are getting up there like 15, 16, 17, and you think you're going to go out and work for somebody, is you will lose your independence. You will lose your freedom. One day you won't feel good, and you'll call the person that you're working for and saying, I've got a bit of a sniffle, I don't think I should come in. And they'll say, oh, that's no problem, you come on in. If it's just a bit of a sniffle, it's okay. And so you can't. Pretty soon they're dictating life to you, and you are too intimidated to say no. And I talked about this in my last video, and I didn't mean to imply that you couldn't ask members of your family if someone came over and offered employment to you. That I said we tend to say, oh, well, I'll see what my family schedule is, or what my husband is doing, or what everybody thinks. And but the problem was you'd just be prolonging the answer, and that other person will start to pester and push, and you can never get out of it. So it'd be easier, since you know your family's values, and if you're 15, 16, and 17, or younger or older, and you know your family's values, and you know what your parents want for you, you don't have to say, well, you'll have to ask my parents, or I'll have to ask my parents. You can just say, this is not something I will be doing. Because if you say anything, they're going to figure out how to argue you down. If you even say, I'm a homebody, they'll say, oh, well, you need to get out. They will find anything they can to lure you out. And even the most religious people, even the most stalwart, plain families whose daughters know better and want to be home, can be lured out by some friend or some acquaintance saying, could you come and work for me on Monday because so-and-so's not coming? And I know you know how to do this, So they work for them on Monday. Well, pretty soon it's Monday and Wednesday. Then it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Then one day you get sick, and you call in and you say, I can't come today, Mrs. Black. And she says, why? Well, I've got this sinus headache. Well, you come to work. I'll give you a tablet because I really need you here. And pretty soon you are a servant and a slave, and someone has taken away your independence. And you have to think about how that's going to work for you. They start to depend on you. And I want to read what he has to say about the men's role in all of this. Now, if you're not interested in this, you're welcome to go somewhere else. It doesn't bother me if you don't care about it or believe in it. And I want to warn you not to absorb everything or endorse everything just because I talk about it. Check it out and see if it works. And we're supposed to be proving that God's word, and he says keepers at home, young women, keepers at home, and the older women are to teach the younger women to be keepers at home. And but you have to check it out and prove it and live it to see how it works. And you can't just say that everything I say, I'll just do everything you say. You have to check it out. Every family has a different schedule, and make make these values your own for your own reasons because you deeply believe them and you can't be moved. And otherwise, you've got to keep getting convinced over and over. And that's why we keep our young girls at home. But the boys miss out on this training. They need to know what we're training them to so that they know what's expected of the girls. And I found more and more boys where I have been teaching the girls' class to them, telling them, you know, what the man's role is and what the woman's role is, because the boys get missed out on this personal training. So consider the seriousness of this step from the following viewpoints. It makes her independent. That rattles people when it says it makes her independent, but it's a different kind of independence. If one of the features of femininity is dependency, now I'm going to say graciousness or gracefulness, because I've been seeing how confusing the word feminine is from feminist. Feminist is the women's lib word, and look how well they tweaked that word to go so close to the word feminine, so that people would be confused and sucked into it very easily. That's what they do to words. It doesn't seem wise to direct her. If one of the features of femininity is dependency, and it's talking about depending on the father and the husband, it doesn't seem to be wise to direct her to a career which makes her independent. See, because pretty soon this little part-time job that you're going to is going to end up that you're going to need your own vehicle, and of course, and I agree, our daughter had her own vehicle, but it was for errands and for things that she had to go. She went to see friends, and she went to different events and activities on her own, and but she was home located. By doing so, she loses her need for manly care, for family. One of the things that she would be in danger of is acquiring masculine efficiency. And remember, in the Taylor Caldwell book I read called Women's Lib, where she said because she had worked all of her life from the time she was 15 on, and it was forced labor really, because her mother forced her to go to work, and her father didn't care, didn't defend her, and she said one of the things that the boys that she liked the most noticed was her fierce independence, and they said it would never work out for them to marry her because she would always want to be independent away from them. And so it says it encourages her to get a job. Training for careers encourages women to continue working after marriage. Now, you remember, ladies, those of you who are vital back in the old days, when women only worked at the local whatever soda shop, hoping to meet someone and get married and then not work. They worked until they got married, and then that was goodbye to all that. And do you remember when in Wives and Daughters, when Mr. Gibson proposed to Hyacinth, she said, "Oh, Mr. Gibson, if you knew what a long struggle this has been." And she referred to her job the same way Taylor Caldwell said, she said, "I wanted to tell this man I want to marry you and not go back to that hateful job." Well, Hyacinth was the same way. She said, "Oh, Mr. Gibson, I'll be so glad not to have to go back to work," you know. And they didn't mean they wouldn't work at home, but go back to the job, go back to the employment. We need to start talking like that too, because we do work at home. But Mrs. Hyacinth, when Mr. Gibson proposed to her, burst into tears and said, "It's been a long, lonely struggle, and I don't want to go back to that job." And he said, "Well, you shall never have to do that." And that was the way men were. They're very chivalrous. Training for careers encourages women to continue working after marriage. Well, that would be the same as going to college or university in hopes for a degree for a career. And once you get that, that is the same as Taylor Caldwell said. You're practically doomed. It's the same as a paycheck, and they will be using it. In fact, there's a profession here that a lot of women enter that pays so high that men want to marry these women because they bring in so much money from this career, and that is so sad that then of course they'll, once they get married, if they are in a career, they will be doing that all of their lives. And then it got to be where women would work until they had their first baby. And it was discovered that being pregnant and going to work every day was not good for them. But they used to work until, a certain time, like when I met a man and then I got married. And then they changed it to till I get pregnant. And then they changed it till I have a baby. So it just went on. And then daycare was created. It was very accessible. And then it just goes on and on and on. And they work until they retire now. And that is so sad. Training for careers encourages women to continue working after marriage. The intensive training seems wasted if it's put on the shelf. That's what they always told us, you're wasting your education. They are tempted to use their knowledge whether they need to work or not. Training becomes out of date. Yes, the minute you leave college or university, that's obsolete. Your training is obsolete because things change so fast. And some of the careers that you're trained for are no longer even exist. Because the robots will be doing it. Qualifications for a job change from year to year. That's true. And this is an old book. It was written 50 years ago. It was written 50 years ago, and it's still true. The woman who is qualified at one time may be out of date a few years later. And I'm particularly thinking of the teaching careers, where the teachers have to constantly go back and get updated and spend the money that they have earned so hard to go back and get updated and stay in their career so they can at least keep their place or advance. It never ends. It's like the company store. Remember that? In the coal mine areas where the owners of the mines owned the store, so that after they got their paycheck, the workers would go to the store and spend the money back at that store. And that's the same with some of these careers. To keep them, you have to go back and get more educated, and sometimes the education is directly connected to the career. And it just keeps you in a circle. When she marries and has children, she drops out of the workforce. When she returns, she must take further training to qualify her to work. Was the earlier training worth it? Could her time in college have been better spent on other subjects? This is another thing that we have to consider, is that childbearing years of the young woman are often spent in college and careers. And then we have an awful problem that then they want to get married and have children, and sometimes it seems out of reach to them when they have put all their time into and focus into college and career. And it also can be an easy escape from marriage. The independence which results from the ability to make money can be a dangerous thing for a woman, serving as an escape. When difficulties arise in marriage, the woman who is independent has less incentive to make the adjustment. She can support herself, and divorce seems an easy way out. And it says here, harm to the man. When you work, you rob your husband of his right to meet ordinary challenges and to grow by these challenges. Harm to the woman. When you work by choice, you tend to lose some of your womanliness. It's talking about your gracefulness and your natural womanliness, the thing that separates you from manliness. The moon, and this is the quote, the moon, when it moves from its sphere of night into day, loses its luster, its charm, its very poetry. And so it is with a woman. When she attempts to play a part not intended for her, she is gone is the luster and the poetry that says. she's a phantom of delight. When you work, you tend to take on masculine traits. To be aggressive. Have you ever gone to the Department of Motor Vehicles to get your license renewed? And the women working there, I think in particular of all the places I've been, the women working there are extremely harsh. Even the men don't like to approach the desk and ask for anything. They'll get yelled at, you know. And these women are extremely tough and worse than masculine. The masculine men that work in these places are nicer. When you work, you tend to take on masculine traits because possibly you have authority too in these places over other people. To be aggressive, bold, capable, efficient, and independent, resulting in a loss of femininity. And less masculine jobs are available, of course. And any time of work that earns money encourages independence. It's not wrong to earn money, but when you get out there in the world, you find there's more going on than just being left alone to earn money. There is an influence there. There is a changing of your culture. And the culture of the home, if it's real strong, people will target you even more. If they notice that you're different, that you're more feminine, they're going to knock that right out of you, that you dress differently. They're going to modernize you. They're going to update you. They're going to illuminate you. When a woman divides herself between two worlds, it's difficult for her to succeed in either. In her world alone, she has challenge enough to achieve the domestic excellence she desires. It takes great effort to divide her time and interest between the two worlds of the home and the working world. Makes success in either difficult, and you cannot serve two masters because you'll just do one of them well and one of them poorly. And when you work outside the home, girls, here's one of the problems, is that you'll be thinking about that when you get ready to go. Maybe it's the next day. You can't really sleep completely relaxed or fitful. You're thinking about how you've got to get up and go the next day, and this responsibility weighs heavily upon you. Even if she rejects her home sphere and turns her heart and soul into the working world, she will have difficulty. In many jobs, she will have a natural disadvantage. And that means that she wanders between two worlds. She'll never be fully accepted in one place because she also has a role at home. When a woman works because it is her husband's idea, and I want to spend maybe one video discussing that the men are the ones that unfortunately have been misled, and they are forcing their daughters and their wives out to work outside the home, and so the home is losing its warmth, its luster, its influence. His suggestion that she work casts doubt in her mind as to his adequacy as a man. If he must lean on her, she will question his ability to solve his problems and face responsibility that is his. This brings insecurity to her. We have women today that have a constant sense of anxiety, and they don't know why, but it is that they really don't have husbands who are determined to make them feel at ease. Like Mr. S said to me, I used to worry all the time, you know, should I get out, should I earn, should I be helping out? He says, just relax, I'll take care of everything. You just sit there and look pretty. You just read this cookbook, do anything you want to do, sew, teach the children. If I have to, I'll get a second job. And that's all the men were that way. They would have gone and got, many of the men would go and get second jobs when times were hard or their first job failed or closed or something. They were right on the spot getting more work. And it wasn't, people will say that a man should earn a living but not for luxuries, but these men weren't like that. They would say not only would their wives have the necessities, but they'd have some comforts too. They'd have hot water and they'd have maybe an extra car. It wouldn't be a new one, but it would be one that would work, and they would have the luxury of a little money to spend on comforts of their homes. And it wasn't like no luxuries at all. This is a Spartan life, you know. and they would reassure them. Now we have more women with stomach problems, heart problems, um, emotional problems, and sleep problems, and a lot of it is because they don't have the faith that they will be taken care of. And so listen to this. Still another harm to consider if the woman's relationship to her is the woman's relationship to her employer. And I'm talking to you single girls too, because you'll have to consider this. I know if you've already left home and you haven't been home in a while that this is a different situation for you, but for you girls that are home, especially you homeschool girls, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 and on up, still another harm to consider is the woman's relationship to her employer, especially if she is a man. But even if it's a woman, that person becomes an authority over you. She's accustomed to looking up to her husband or father as a director of her activities, and she finds herself taking order from someone else, and it's an unnatural situation. So whether the employer is a man or a woman doesn't matter. They are an influence, you know. And you may think you're going to work for a Proverbs 31 woman. She's got her own shop and she's got all this and that, but maybe she's really not, you know. And she's not a religious woman, or she doesn't share your values on many things, and that can't be good to spend more time there. Countless hours with this person, and it talks about great harm that it can cause a person. Not only that, but the way that the system is today and the hours that people keep is not conducive to good health. And also, if it's a sitting job and it's an all-day sitting job, you might as well be at home, because we sit too. And if it's a standing job and it's very hard on your legs and very hard on your feet, you might as well stay home, because you do a lot of standing at home too. And so ladies, I hope that this has been somewhat edifying. I wanted to show you one other thing before I go, and that is something that I've been enjoying. And Southern Lady had a free issue, and it was tucked inside of a Victoria magazine, and you could get a free issue, and I wanted to show you. And they want to promote their magazine and have you subscribe, and it's so pretty just to have it here. And I love this, like things like this, the front porch view. It's all about the home, and sometimes they'll do a historical town or something like that in the South. And so I wanted to tell you about that. And it does have tea recipes, and it's called Southern Lady, but it was a free sample issue, and I wanted you to know about that. I don't know if you could find it on the web, but it was just one of these little cards that fell out of another magazine. And I think it's nice for a homemaker to have something laying somewhere to look at that feeds back delightfulness and happiness to her soul at home. So ladies, I hope you'll stay close to Christ, and that you will ask God to help you in managing your home and being content, and get as close to the model in Scripture as possible. Get as close to being a keeper at home as you possibly can, instead of looking for loopholes and ways around it and reasons to get around it. Just test it and see if it works. And isn't there an old scripture in the old Bible, the Old Testament, concerning trusting God? It says, "Test me now in this, and see if I will not pour out for you from the windows of heaven a blessing that cannot be contained." And I think we have to put God's word to the test by doing it and seeing how it works, and seeing if it works for us. And ladies, increase your thankfulness and decrease your anxiety. Increase your thankfulness. Thank you for all the encouragement that you give me, and I hope I can come more often. Stay close to Christ. I love you. Bye.